Okay. All right. Hello and welcome to Radio TULUM. We are again joined by the incomparable sociologist, Mr. Juan Guerra. Hello, Mr. Guerra.
Thanks for the extra icing on the cake.
Yeah. This is Radio TULUM Talks. We're very excited to bring you another episode. This is our third podcast with Mr. Guerra here, Mr. Sociologist himself. And we are going beyond identity, and we're joined by our administration guru, audio engineer, Enrique. What's your last name, Enrique, again?
Cutolen.
Tolen.
Cutolen.
Cutolen?
Sí.
Okay. Enrique Cutolen. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And of course, behind the camera is your incomparable mother and father of Radio TULUM, Mandeep. And all right, so let's start by recapping identity. Okay, when you're ready to get off the phone, Mr. Juan Carlos.
I was just, you tagged me for this?
We're not live.
Oh, okay.
We're
No
not
problem.
Live. We'll put it live tomorrow.
Yeah,
Because it's just the camera is not being.
no problem. We don't have to be live, we just have to be there.
Yeah, you have to be alive,
Yeah.
not live on Facebook,
Yes.
right? We're talking about identity.
Yes.
And our identity is so wrapped up in Facebook, and I find I say a curious thing. I say Andy Warhol jokingly said everybody wants 15 minutes of fame. And I feel like with Facebook, it's almost like 5 seconds of fame, or fame of a like, where our identity is so wrapped up in the exterior. What do you think about that? Where are we with identity, Juan?
I would sum it up in one word: the mind.
Our identity is the mind.
Yes.
Explain.
Because a mind is like a web that we weave ever since we are raised in language, in symbols, signs. We construct our own external self, my name, my last name, all the expectations of culture, my family.
The caste system.
The caste system, anything.
Yeah.
We are Mexicans. Into that thing which we call me, which is tied to the whole idea of names, last names, countries, flags, you, me, us, them.
State.
Yes,
City.
state, religion. Everything is in the mind, and we are given that slowly, so that we ourselves are limited or strengthened with this framework of mind always. It's the basis of anything we are or we choose to be in the cultural sense. So it's not me, the inner child, who has a name. Inner child has no name. It's me, Juan Carlos, with a last name, Mexican, a passport, maybe a visa for the country I'm in, that somebody else gave me slowly in school, on the church, politics, elections, remind me of names, concepts. So the identity would be that. So the mind references the world it perceives.
Exactly.
By the again, I say the signs and the symbols, which mean something, because they were there before us, so they are given to us in order for us to interpret the reality that is being given to us as a possibility, not what we really see or what our inner child wants. That's different.
Yeah. Enrique, where do you think we are with identity? Let's. Can we clean up that stuff?
I think it's the same thing. It's conditioning, experiences, personality is also not even ours. So, there shouldn't be really an identity if we were really free, because identity is what makes us, well, who we are, but we are not really it. So identity just enslaves us and puts a screen over in front of our eyes, so we cannot see farther from what we have learned, from what everyone and everything that has taught us everything in life. Like, we cannot see beyond something that's already printed on our mind, so it's enslavement.
Well, I mean,
Yes, definition takes over experience
Yeah.
in the individual and personal sense.
and also, I mean, I think that you have to think about the powers that be, the world that we live in. They want you, they need you to have an identity. If you don't have an identity, I can't place you in a demographic. I can't put you in a space that I can sell you. And also, with my study of greed, or how the culture changed after the vortex opened in the 60s, is that they created these niche markets. Not only that they, you had an identity, as nationalistic identity, as we spoke of for Mexican identity. Then they had to give you an identity in your work, and they had to give you an identity with your team, and then they had to give you an identity.
A function.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's also. But my question is, what is your identity? Who are you, Enrique?
I don't know. I am just live being, experiencing life. But I really know what like, if we're talking about that, I wouldn't really know what I really am. I don't think no one really knows what they are doing here. No one knows everything.
No one knows anything.
Anything.
Yeah, that's a pretty honest answer.
Yeah.
So, because we don't know who we are, and it takes a long time to discover for yourself, it's easier to give a brand to someone. Oh, you're gonna be this. Don't ask questions, just play this out. We have given this to you. Your function and your role in society as a Mexican means you're gonna have to vote on July the 1st. Because all Mexicans, identity, have to find their liberties through voting. This is who they are.
And in the third world, we talk about the third world, and you had brought up some leader that didn't want to be in the, was it a Chilean leader? I don't remember, or Argentinian. That we so easily accept our identity because, and in the third world, it's even more hard. Like I am Mexican, I am Indian, I am from this village, I am a Hindu, I am a Catholic. It's just so much because in general sense, when you have so little, you need something to be proud of, or something to sort of put yourself in. And we were talking about the illiteracy of the culture as a whole. Also guides you to this. So, how do we go beyond identity? Enrique, that's a good question for you.
How do we go beyond that identity? Well, probably only experiencing the now, the present moment, because there's nothing more. So going beyond mind, so then with a bit of meditation you can do that, with a bit of attention to the present moment, or what happens inside of you or outside of you. Attention maybe gives you that.
But there's a paradox, because the mind is the identity, but for me it's hard to go beyond it if you have not educated yourself with and through the mind in order to see a way beyond it. So what you do is, every level of awareness you want to go beyond, you first have to awaken it, and then to understand it, transcend it, but include it. in your way. So you cannot go beyond identity if you're an animal in the full sense, because you're at the emotional and instinctual level. Humans have a mind, it's not all negative. The paradox of mind is that it also hinders us. It makes it difficult for us to go beyond it, because we live so within it that we think we are framed by it. So the paradox is we first have to enlighten ourselves in the classical way of reading and traveling and questioning, which has been given to us, in order to turn that around and to use it as a prism to project colors and not only names, last names, flags, functions, or roles. Work, routine,
Yeah.
gods, politician.
You know, it's interesting. I've been trying to cultivate this notion that we have to change all our books. All the books have to be rewritten, like the Bible and
Oh, definitely the Bible.
yeah, or the Gita. Like I like to say, let's rewrite the Gita to say Arjuna. And if you guys don't know the story of the Gita, it's basically Krishna, the Lord, talking to a warrior, Arjuna, and Arjuna is uncertain about why he's fighting the war, and Krishna is giving him all the knowledge that he needs. But I almost believe that at this time, at this moment, Arjuna has to say, thank you, Krishna, for the knowledge. Now I have to go find out for myself if I am what you say I am. You know, he has to become Krishna. He has to absorb the knowledge. Like, I almost want Arjuna to leave the battlefield and say, fuck it, I don't want the eternal life. I want to find out who is I, who am I? And I mean the small letter I, not the prideful big letter I. And what do you think? Do you think that we should spend some time rearranging these indoctrinated books and societal institutions that keep us tied down to this identity? Why won't they let us free? How can we break away?
Well, you're questioning the whole edifice. I mean, without myth, there's no culture. And without functions and roles in society, there's no society.
That's a very important point, right?
So when Krishna tells Arjuna that it's his caste duty as a warrior to fight a war without a question, well, this is the same as indoctrinating a standing army.
Yeah, a
And
soldier.
telling you, oh, you have to fight and no questions asked. Just go get the gold and then we'll give you your share. So yeah, Bhagavad Gita is indoctrination. It's like the Mahabharata. They're patriarchal myths, which I would question, but then what would the culture revolve around?
That's an interesting
And
question.
there wouldn't be any power structures left, and then the path would open to go beyond identity, but this is not what they want.
But
They want you carrying the flag.
But you're sort of
Kissing
a
it.
millennial, right? You're how old are you?
Yeah, well, I'm from '88.
Okay, so you're sort of in that realm.
Yeah, I'm like
There was-
Yoda. I'm Yoda.
No, but
Yoda
the
into
reason I
the-
bring this up is because the latest movements, the Arab Spring, the 99% movement, and all these millennials that I talk to, and I talk about Radio TULUM, and we talk about all this stuff, and everybody thinks that there should be a flat line, sort of everybody makes the decisions. And there's that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about a society that's sort of, there's no hierarchical structure. I don't believe in that. I think there needs to be leaders, but what do you feel about what Juan Carlos was just talking about, that we need to break away all the structures and almost have chaos?
I do believe that.
You believe that nobody should be leading anybody.
Yeah, and at the same time, chaos, I don't think is really caused because of that. I think chaos is also a part of nature. Like, the storm comes, chaos, then calm, then another storm, then another calm. Like chaos is part of nature, so we don't really need to escape from chaos. We need to accept it, but at the same time, I think definitely hierarchy needs to be erased. We don't we don't really need someone to tell us what to do if we are doing what we love, for example. Like, the thing is that because we are in some kind of transition and everyone still wants so much money, like everything goes around money, so then chaos is caused because of some kind of different confusion that I don't really understand.
Yeah, big groups are attracted to big things because we are sold big things for us to chase and to have that as our ideals. I would say that the problem with identity and big names is that there's a correlation outside. We tend to be within urban and massified societies. The problem with identity is that it reached a dead end in terms of social organization. Big identity is there for big human groups. The United States of America, India, China, 5,000 million people in 3 countries, man, 4 countries. So beyond identity for me means that the social organization goes beyond the nation state.
That's the first step.
That's the first step.
There's only one ancient durable order. It's called humanity.
And to go beyond that, the fact is we don't go back to the state of nature.
We don't go back to Africa,
No.
where we first
Or to
began.
the tree.
Yeah.
We don't climb a tree. The thing is, with what we have now in front of us, we use our available resources in the practical and technical way in order to, I don't want to say survive, but to get along and to build communities, smaller communities, which can have a sort of new leadership. But leadership beyond identity leaves dogma aside and patriarchy and myth.
Exactly.
What we have is leadership transformed into people that are not defending ideas or dogma. No, they are defending experience.
Exactly.
So leadership
And
means
that's-
being and transcending the ego and the me and you and enlightening your presence in order to be a light for smaller groups of people that see in your presence the leadership that they will need for whichever period of time you might need it
And you're
for.
I wouldn't really mind to have a leader for, like, if someone is better than me and I know that, so I wouldn't really mind for him to be or her to be my leader at that certain task. But leadership in, like politics style, I don't think it's needed. Like, if you look at a child, like, they don't have leaders. Well, yeah, maybe
Mother and father. I mean, you need to be
sometimes, yeah,
guided, brother.
they do.
And, I mean, we were talking about Osho just a few seconds ago. I mean, what would you consider Osho?
Well,
You respect Osho, right?
I respect him, and I admire him.
But he was a leader. People
He was a
bowed
leader.
down to him, and he was the last word.
Yeah, but at the end, after Osho told that first you need to kill your society, then you need to kill your parents, then you need to kill your master.
Yeah.
Is that Jim Morrison or who?
So that means, like, at the end you will find yourself what you need, what you believe in, but you have learned from everyone. So at the end you don't really need a leader, because the real leader is, well, is love. Here the love. And it's also it's just human beings try to live good. Like
Harmoniously.
if we take a bit, like put the ego a bit down, like the sun rises for everyone. So ego is just completely attached with insecurity. So ego and power, someone that wants a lot of power is really someone that wants a lot of love.
In the end, yes.
Because they want attention, they want to feel important. So one that wants a lot of money and someone that wants a lot of power, at the end they really just want a lot of attention and love. So at the end,
I
it
mean,
sounds
yeah.
romantic, but
I think there's a balance.
I agree,
No,
yeah.
sorry, Juan Carlos.
No, it's fine.
No,
No, please go ahead.
No, I think in the end, not in the end, but in the midst of this conversation, I think that there's a balance of harmony, and I think as a society, if we want to talk about a global, if we strip away, because when you look the Earth from the sky, there are no boundaries. You know,
No.
between countries.
No.
no.
There are no
Stupid.
boundaries on this earth, and at the first level, when you break apart this identity that we have been forced into, just because of where we were born,
Where you were born. You didn't
that's
choose your
all.
country.
and by whom you were born.
And to
You know, I mean, and to
Both.
and because the caste system. I mean, the Jewish culture, not until a long time ago, their last names are literally of what their career was.
Yeah.
Shoestein, you're a shoemaker. Goldstein, you're a gold maker.
Yes.
And it's all inherent.
And your yes, go ahead.
And I think that they're the reason why the 99% movement and even the Arab Spring, it clearly shows me that a horizontal society cannot work, because the powers that be will destroy a society that isn't have a face. It doesn't have a movement. If there's no Martin Luther King leading the fucking revolution, if there's no Fidel Castro,
It's easier to quote.
it's easier to just dissipate. It goes away, bro. And I want to be careful. We are not at the point. We're going to get there, where society is in a circular formation, where everybody's allowed the space. But that's a long time coming, almost 6 generations from now. We have to take a step forward.
This is what I was going to say. It would be an impossible sell at the collective level to go beyond identity. So I want to go back and say that beyond identity is really for individuals and small groups, maybe a collectivity. And the work that has to be done has to happen at the psychological level. Because I would take the metaphor of killing the institutions, not doing it physically, but doing it mentally, in order to be able to overcome authoritarian institutions, patriarchal institutions which we reproduce unconsciously. Just like our parents are the unfortunate and unconscious enforcers of culture and tradition.
Unconscious,
And,
you know,
yeah, I
because
mean,
they
no.
were dealt with
Yes.
whatever they were dealt with.
You have to go to school because I went to school and I was empowered because I now know the national anthem, and you have to follow national heroes, and
Yeah.
so
Mandeep, you must
unconsciously.
read the book.
So-
Mandeep, you must
Yeah.
read the book. Bow your head.
So the practical aspect of all this is that we don't have to be worried about the external if we are able to work with the internal introjected sense of identity which we are given. And that means this is going within, working at the personal. First, to go beyond ego, you have to see it as such. And once you see that you are not that, you can transform the inner voice of competition into...
And ego and insecurity. And,
But the ego never disappears. The thing is,
it's always going to be.
you transmutate the ego and you use your will, the individual will, liberated or freed from must do, must be, must accomplish, and then you can start working on your path. Once you accept yourself, you are through the green. And then from there I will continue, but in the end, the path is towards authenticity, of presence, of not work, but of play, and of making that your own leadership. And then coming back out again and having a proposal for others, a way which you are living through first, which is basically the sannyasin, what the Buddha or other mystics did in Asia, in Eastern.
Yeah.
They say, okay, I saw this, I realized this, but here I am. I did not leave this planet, I didn't transcend. I am still here stuck within this body, but I am using this in order to bring this out, set this forth from me as an example.
Yeah,
So individuals don't disappear. They just come back with a voice.
I also think that all the great mystics and the great leaders always said that within you resides the same power as I have meditated upon. But you need to go through the process first.
Yes.
You know, you can't just say
No.
that you are Buddha, that you want this equanimity. You have to work through the process of finding that. And that's the problem. Society as a whole is lazy. We want to, and not only lazy, but it also they're making people work 18 hours a day, so when the fuck do you have time, to ever think about yourself?
No.
You're gonna turn on the telenovela, you're gonna turn on the cheap soap opera that's gonna entertain you, because there's no other way. You're gonna go eat at McDonald's because you don't have enough money, so you're gonna get diabetes, because there's no other options. And I agree with you that I think we have to do it in a smaller scale. We have to do it in pockets of change that occur.
You start from you.
Yes, I mean, I think you start with you, and I think that there's places like, dare I say, Radio TULUM, which is trying to commit to a sort of space where expression is the temple we all move towards.
Mm-hmm.
But expression, because that's the thing that's missing. That's the thing that creates anger, is that we don't know how to express the emotions that we understand instinctually that are happening. That vibration that makes us understand that your color, your workplace, has no difference, and those vibrations are going on, but we have no idea to communicate it, so we get angry. That's why ignorance exists. And this is a very important, and through pockets of commitment to sincerity, to generosity. That's another word I like to use, is how do you maintain a generosity of spirit when the whole fucking world will attack that generosity, and you quickly become embittered, solidified.
We've been raised to deny our emotions, which is the basis of who we are, really. The inner child is full of emotions. Perfect timing. So, on the other hand, we are not only denied our emotions, de facto, but we are also given always an easier way out. So instead of following Buddha's way, there we can see Buddha statues, and they just toss some coins, throw some coins, and do some puja, and now you're enlightened. Or sing Hare Krishna. No, man. The guy said you had to go the long way to find yourself. But the culture, no, don't follow his way. Just
read the book.
Paint the golden statue. No.
And then yell at each other and commit crimes. Sorry, Enrique, what do you think about where we are as a millennial?
Also, culture just takes the master and they utilize them to make money. But their teachings are great. Also at the same time, Well, shit.
You know what I find interesting about you, Enrique, is that you are, I don't, there's few souls that I meet, that I run into, that feel universal to me, that are not tied into their culture or country or space. How did you achieve, you're from Mexico, correct?
Yeah.
But how did you achieve this sort of sense of yourself? This sort of identity, so to speak.
Well,
Or non-identity?
I think I've lived in some different families, cultures. I changed from to many schools, but I don't really know. I haven't really thought about it. I don't know.
You just are.
Yeah, I
It's
don't
just,
really-
I find it fascinating because generally there's such a pride to the Mexican culture. It's like, I am Mexican, you know, like
Oh,
that's
yeah.
the first. It's like, where are you from? I am Mexican, you know, like there's such a deep pride. It's like you know, like the other day, just to give you a small example, one of our friends, we went to visit Illumina, the Pablo Vargas sculpture, and the first thing out of the mouth was, he's Mexican.
Oh yeah.
And to me, I find that mind-boggling. You know, like just that relative pride to, he's from my country, and I want my country to be the best country in the planet.
It's
It's because they have identified themselves with their conditionings, but I
ouch.
just see
Bingo.
that like I think it's stupid to really be conditioned to believe in a region or a country or anything. Like at the end, we are just human beings. I don't think.
Yeah. No, but at this particular example, he's giving himself certainty that me is Mexican. Three times in the same phrase. So it means whatever I am or I intend to present myself as is directly related with flag, country, and or food or music and or beer.
Yeah.
Or the American
I think
football
it
team.
It goes like Guillermo del Toro wins the Oscar, and a Mexican has won the Oscar finally, you know,
It's
or
propaganda.
or the Indian when what was that Bollywood movie by Danny Boyle that won the Oscars, and the musician won the Oscar. It's just that relative. It's like, you know, I was at, you know who Louis C.K., who's unfortunately been probably erased off the planet because of his masturbations and his treatment of women. I went to see him, and somebody yelled out, "Yeah, Boston," and he goes, "You guys are so stupid. That is the smallest of the pride that you will ever find. You know, it's the smallest. It's the pride that doesn't lead you anywhere.
No.
You know, and it's just interesting. I find very interesting that I never look at you culturally. I don't put you in any kind of box, and it's a rare thing around these parts.
But I mean, there's a whole idea of this. I mean, this is about the guy winning the Oscar, which is American. It's in the United States. Everything's produced over there. The actors are American. The money is American. But yeah, the Mexican won the Oscars. Wow, all the Mexicans go and they go to the main statue of this Mexico City and they start celebrating like lunatics. Man, culture reinforces identity by confronting brands, names, and possibilities in a dual sense. So, if this guy wins, that's good. If he loses, it's bad. If this team wins, this team's identity is reinforced and the other loses. So the whole culture is an extrinsic mechanism of duality. So identity only works through the mind by contrasting good or bad, white or black, poor or rich. In the end, we're all interconnected, like Enrique says, But for the culture, no, they don't want you to find out we're interconnected because you're not gonna need them in the end.
Yeah, they've
So
been
they need to
fighting-
create conflict perpetually.
Exactly.
That-
Duality generates conflict.
Duality
Conflict
generates conflict.
generates money
Money and opposition and salvation.
and control.
The reason why they often say the reason why Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, who would eventually, they were very partitioned, they were two different spectrum of the revolution that happened in America, but they would come together eventually. And the reason why they were assassinated was not that they were fighting, they started to understand that it wasn't a black and white that they were fighting, it was a poor and rich thing that they were fighting. It's the control and the people who are controlled.
You want to rule over people, just put the middle class against the working class, set them alight, set them afire, and they will leave you alone. You will be able to rob them poor. So the middle class is always fighting the poor people because the rich are always putting them against each other.
Well, what's interesting, sorry, go ahead, Enrique.
And they are also scared, like the poor are there because the middle class is always fearful of getting poorer, and also has the I want to reach.
The need.
The rich.
Yeah, the
I want
rich.
to buy the Gucci.
So
I wanna
the
buy
middle class is the guy that supports the whole economic system. But really they are just afraid of getting poor, and they spend their whole lives in getting rich.
Aspiration and desire is what moves the whole fucking thing.
Yeah, and fear.
So you have to offer a meritocracy for everyone. Even though we know in Mexico more than half of the population, and I'm being optimistic, does not have access just because how they look, or because they gave up their land to some fucking adventurous real estate agent. And oh no, yeah, we're gonna make you rich. But I'm rich. I have fresh water and I have fish and I have forest. Oh no, but you're gonna work for us, and you're gonna be richer in the end.
You're going to have money.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to buy a
But
car.
you didn't ask me, but I want to answer you. You asked him why his sense of identity does not seem very strong in the positive sense, because we're not defending a flag or a football team. But in my case, I think I've been lucky.
I find, yeah, totally.
I've been lucky enough to see other places. And because you're able to see other perspectives and ways of life, you then can question your own beliefs and your own frameworks and projections at the emotional, the rational, and the intuitive levels. So slowly you start questioning who you think you are. Man, I don't eat tacos every day. Sometimes I want to eat fucking pizza. And I'm not Italian, but I prefer to have options, not only in terms of what I eat or how I behave, but how I project who I think I am in this planet, which has no borders and definitely no identity.
It's a tough racket, though. I mean, I think that, we sit around pontificating about these ideals. I still have that there's a human condition, and I think that, I've traveled looking for wisdom quite a bit in my life, and it always boils down to one thing, and all my films are dedicated to this idea, is that you cannot participate in the change that you seek. You have to start the change, and the change will come much later. Our responsibility with any of our work is how do we open a little bit of the mind, a little bit of the door to see, like for my first movie, when I went to find my favorite poet, there was a song that says, I saw a man walking on Fifth Avenue with a placard on his back, and it read, "Please don't pass me by, for I have been blinded, as you can see. I have been blinded totally. Please don't pass me by." And I wrote it on a placard, and I held it in the public square in Montreal. And everybody passed me by. And I realized then that I wasn't doing it for the attention. It didn't matter if they passed me by. My responsibility in this moment was to make them see that eventually down the road, I will not participate in their change, but perhaps down the road, 1 out of 10 people won't pass somebody else by. And this is the responsibility, because it's so we're so hyper normalized, as we keep referencing the great Adam Curtis in any conversation.
Comfort zone in the.
And that the change, because we get so inundated, like there is no real hope for change. I mean, I really don't see, unless one of my favorite poets was Arthur Rimbaud. He said, some destruction is necessary. And I feel like that's the only choice. It's only through destruction will come any sort of change. Otherwise, as Adam Curtis pontificates, that the world has run away with itself. The bankers can't control it, the politicians can't control it, and it's all now solidified. So do you think that there is any way that we can go beyond identity? Enrique?
There's any way to go beyond identity?
I think I've asked this question in the beginning, which I should have waited for the end. But you know, I mean, I can. Okay, let me put it another way. Meditation, right? Everybody tells you meditate, and you even spoke, Juan Carlos, and you said you got to start within. I agree. You have to start within. But the responsibility is not just within, because once you start within, you get to your depth. Your responsibility to get to your depth is to get to your fellow man. Because you know your depth, you know your identity, your intuitive nature is stronger. Once your intuitive nature is stronger, whoever comes into contact with, you can see, offer them themselves. And this is a greater responsibility.
That's all you can do in terms of going beyond identity. Because the moment you go out there and start spreading the word, and let's all go beyond identity. Vote for me and we will go beyond identity. You become Noah. And all the people you're trying to convince to come with you become the animals on your ship.
And you put yourself another identity.
And you put yourself another identity. This is what the mystics have always feared. If I write down what I say, it becomes dogma. And if dogma is solidified, then from there to building churches and temples, it's only a stone's throw away. So this is the paradox, that going beyond identity is a slow process. It's like a drop more than a wave.
Well, I mean, let's talk about that. I think that with the newer generation, even the generation beyond your generation, they are sort of going beyond identity, aren't they?
Well, yeah, if you look, as we said last time, there's a positive side to having a phone in your hand all the time. I mean, it distracts you from reality, but this alternative reality, this cybernetic reality that you have within your hand, well, helps you to be more interested about something you chose than having to watch television, which has a more collective sense of identity, or to go into a church that has membership and fees for some god. Or you could be more worried about something that's happening in Japan, and you're not really Japanese, but you're more interested in that. So technology helps. It has shocked our traditional senses of identity, because, well, if you see Facebook, it broke away with the Bible or other dogmas, political ideologies. So technology can help in constructing you. Yeah, in the end, it's not complete liberation, because your sense of identity, even though it's more individualistic, is artificial. I don't want to say superficial. It's something that's constructed from out there with still a material facade. So in the end, it's not going beyond or moksha. But nevertheless, it still has helped, and especially millennials, to find themselves through their own mirror, and from there maybe opens them a possibility of using that same mirror in order to reflect the light onto others.
Do you have anything to add?
I think technology and internet do help a lot because all of that, but it's very delicate because technology is like a knife. You can use it to cook or to kill yourself. So it should be properly used, and the corporations and the really greedy people,
Mhm.
they are utilizing technology to start to control us in other ways.
Yes.
So at the same time of using technology, we must have a time in nature and in meditation. I think it's like science and meditation are a very good team. They solve stuff. They solve problems. Like science, if you have if you need if you are very hot, you create an air conditioner, so it works. And in meditation, if you are feeling with a lot of anxiety, you rest for 30 minutes in the jungle, you breathe, it does works. So those are very good tools that everyone should use, and probably everyone will use as a necessity at the end. Sometimes meditation just ends being a necessity more than just being the
In that
like
sense,
a fad.
yeah.
in that sense,
I'm going to TULUM to meditate.
meditation is also a technology.
Yeah,
In the
some
sense
kind
of it
technology.
being a tool. But
It's a
the
tool.
thing is, we tend to confuse tools for the effect, for the goal itself. So what I'm trying to say with technology is that it doesn't substitute for personal work.
No, it
In
doesn't.
the end, it's just one of the aspects. But you have to integrate a new perspective which you have opened with the help of with the help of technology, just like you would integrate your new perspective which you have gained with the use of meditation as a technology. So both the internet and meditation can help you see in a different way and to project a different light, but you will have to go yourself and walk that path in a very congruous. You have to say what you do, what you think, slowly have to merge. Because when you're merging this, whichever tool you may use, phone, yoga or meditation, you are reaching the point of less resistance. The heart, for me, is not the pump, which is in the middle of the body. The heart is the third eye. But there's no more resistance. And the opposites have been sublimated. And the will has been cleansed of you, me, us, and them, black and white. It's just your inner self in peace with whatever sense of perception
Yeah,
you have.
And I've been thinking about, as we were talking, and I'm talking about the millennials and the acceptance, the rise of the LGBTQ, I still don't know what the Q stands for.
Queer. Queer.
Okay. But they still have a propensity to put themselves inside of a box. And that is the first step, right? I hope that the millennials' acceptance in the next generation, it gets even more sort of, okay, you are who you are, it doesn't really matter, but that propensity, that way of attacking the opposition for civil rights in the LGBTQ community, the Black Lives Matter, the women's movement now. It is insane, the propensity of drama, so to speak. It's really important. I'm not saying there's not an importance of it, but we always are trying to put a Band-Aid to where it requires surgery. you know, where actually you need to penetrate further and see that the nerve endings are split apart. And
The thing is, they are kicking and screaming within the same framework of identity.
exactly.
Because the thing is, in the end, there's a paradox that lies in all these movements, not only lesbian, gay, queer, transsexual.
Black lives, women's now.
It's all using adjectives.
Hippie, fresa, rich.
Every
poor,
every
everything.
identity, every name, every category that we are still fighting for is still within the same framework of
division.
social and cultural differences, rules, laws, and regulations. So it's a paradox. They want freedoms, they want choice, but they have to go and ask the people who make the rules in order for them to feel free within their laws. So the paradox is that they're going in there and kicking at their doors, voting for them. But in the end, I'm just saying, to go beyond identity is to yourself. Just do it without asking anyone else. Fuck it. Okay, maybe you're not gonna get the best of credits to buy a house if you're gay, but it's better to try to do something beyond the system of credits than go back to their doors and try to get freedoms from the people that you know that don't want you to have choices or to have your own sense of identity.
Or in the case of the black movement, it's just boxing. You know, first you understand it's a process, right? First you get freed as a slave, then you get the right to vote, and same as the women's movement. You know, then they figure out another way on how to oppress you, right? Because then they create the Jim Crow and the prison system, and then they privatize the prison system. So that's what you're fucking up against, you know? So how the fuck, and the reason, I don't think they were that smart up to the 80s. It wasn't so solidified, even though the Chicago School of Economics permeated the whole of the world, which has ruined society in many ways, thinking that capitalism was the answer when, you know, there's a balance between socialism and capitalism that really, you know, a free state to do what the fuck you want, but there's also our leaders have to take care of the fucking poor.
There's
The only way America was successful was because the middle class rose up. The only reason why the 60s happened, and nobody knows this, is the 60s happened because the middle class got richer, where the kids for the first time in history had money. Once the kid has the money, he can go buy an album, he can go and open his world up to black music, so to speak, and once you're listening to this thing, all of a sudden, well, of course, the invention of LSD helped too, and this was the reason why it happened. And now that you're killing the middle class again, because there is no more middle class, there's no more American dream. America as an ideal is dead.
This is what the system wants. The system wants you to have a consumer identity. So instead of going and
To travel.
just traveling or transcending your own sense of self, they say, no, just go shop. And you'll find your own sense of who you are when you shop. So the shopping and the capitalistic side of economics fills in this abstract passport of Mexico or of the United States. It's not only being a citizen. We want you also to be a consumer. So your work and the sense of who you are synthesized
Yeah,
in
you
an
make
economic
work to
neoliberal
make money to buy things so that you can
Be someone.
continue this fucking
cycle of consumption and standardization. Because if you're a good consumer, it means you probably are a good citizen too. So this fucking wraps up the whole thing.
Well, yes, it does. I don't know why the Mayan children came to my mind, like the two kids that were playing around. A lot of these kids have never gone to the ocean,
They can't.
which I find mind-boggling. You know, I find that really. Why do you think that is? Why is that an identity wrapped up in there, or what is it? The reason why their parents don't take them to the ocean? Do you know about this? Do you know that
I didn't know.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of NGOs that also, a lot of these kids, they would rather go to the swimming pool than take them to the sea.
Well, because the ocean is now privatized, amigo. If you're Mayan, you're not allowed on the beach.
Yeah.
I just posted a video today on Facebook. There's a group of Mayans that are escorted by some guy that wants them on camera, and they are probing, they're testing the authorities, the people on the beach, and everything's privatized. Everything
you
has
can
barbed
find
wire
actually
around
a
it.
chart-
Oh no, you're not allowed here. Why? Because this is private property. But we're Mayans. I mean, we're included within the discourse of chic Mayan culture. Yeah, but only on the brochure. Ouch. I don't know.
It's so true.
This is what I've seen. I've been here 2 weeks, and I was here in January looking at local relations, and we're fucked. I mean, we're segregating ourselves in the name of
You get
health,
Mexican in general.
spa, sushi, whatnot.
There's going to be Lebanese food soon.
Lebanese food. I mean, we all
There's
like
a
to
Greek.
be international, but the local people don't give a shit. They want to have their own lives
Yeah.
fulfilled.
And so, I mean, speaking on that level, then, I mean, hyper-normalization, just, like it's that same word. I mean, it's almost hopeless. I mean, I often say about Mexico, Tulum in general, I don't think in Mexico in general, but this sort of corruption sort of seeps into the head. This sort of acceptance of this behavior. Slavery. It's almost, I don't know the word slavery. It's because we're somehow willing participants. in our
Serfdom.
own- Yeah. There you go. Yeah. It's a really strange dichotomous times that we're living in. You said you had some sort of an issue with Facebook today? You were saying something about Facebook posting something?
Well, I posted this video on segregation of one group of a small group of Mayan people that in a 6-minute video at least visit 4 or 5 hotels. They want to go to the beach, but there's no public beach left. Needless to say, traditional Maya land for rituals. No, man.
Pure marketing.
There's no marketing. It's all the Buddha is there. Fucking, they don't even know Christ yet. They're still chasing the sun and the moon. They're not even through Christianity, and now the Buddha is fucking in town. Not fucking in the town. In a sense, he is. Or who's this Indian guy with the large dick?
Ganesh.
I mean, they are stroking the people with all this bullshit about being eco-chic and sustainable. They don't even speak the language this is being presented in. So the Mayans are reinforcing, it's a paradox. They are reinforcing their tradition in order to survive in this environment. Today I saw barter on the streets. There was a guy, he has a small cart with a bike, like a rickshaw, local rickshaw. He has plants on it. And he was trying to barter with a woman in a shop. He was trying to barter plants for clothing. And I talked to the guy and I asked a few questions. I mean, I didn't tell him I was observing. Said, what? So, and he said, I can't afford life here anymore. With money, with currency, which has some hero stamp on it, which are not Mayans or indigenous people. They are, but presented for capitalism. They can't afford a fucking bottle of water. I mean, why should they be drinking bottled water in the first place? So they are hostages in their own home.
Because all this fucking diesel fuel has ruined their cenotes and the clean
But
water.
I think we're moving into another topic.
I know.
Let's say what he thinks, and then we can.
Yeah.
Well, I think exactly the same. Like, at least we should include them, Like, no one really cares about them. They just use them for their image, and yeah, no one gives really a fuck about the Mayans. They just pay them to dance, then they go back to their town, and
Fires,
And do their
throwers,
weddings. Yeah.
entertain us, serve us, serve the white man. No.
No.
Yes, this is what they're doing.
The
This is
same
what
thing
we're
that
Yeah,
doing.
but it's the chicken or the egg.
It's the
I think
chicken.
that there's a, it's willing participation. I look at the Trump vote the Trump voter as the same in the same realm. It's just ignorance, and it's also cultivating a backlash that's creating. There's a lot of undercurrent of violence here. I don't mean violence in the same sense of the Indian sexual violence, but there's a corruption that's seeping in everywhere from all parties. And because the Mayans don't know and cannot do, they are feeling, and they are their behavior patterns are changing. And more theft, more.
Yeah.
Well, forget about the killings, but narcos.
Who do you think is feeding the narcos, man? The foot soldiers. Who do you think they are? Unemployed.
Yeah.
The regenerate masses. This is what they call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
so
this,
it's one hand wash. It's both parties that are. So again, it goes back to the pseudo identity. It goes back to what the white man, the rich man's identity. The people who take over this land have sort of made it into this. Buddhist save yourself.
save
to
the world, shit.
and it's again goes back to this hopelessness I feel on wherein lies the solution. I believe, yes, we can heal ourselves, and that's great. I feel so comfortable in my skin. I know who I am. It's- It's okay. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just not enough. I'm just saying that, like there's a line I wrote in a piece that says, you are a woman, something like that, but then it says, but you also have a responsibility to man. And this responsibility of man, because I think that this notion, help yourself, heal yourself, it's in that TULUM sort of stratosphere. Yes, you have, but if you're not centering yourself for all of humanity, because
Ouch! That's a big responsibility.
I mean, but
It's
that's
easier to
the
pay.
responsibility we need to have, because I don't think
Yes.
it's enough.
But nobody wants that. Capitalism does not want that. They're not offering that.
They're not offering
No,
that.
they want
already
you.
started.
They want you to need them. I'm gonna give you the holistic massage, not yourself, because if you don't need me, then you don't need to pay me. So all this lifestyle is given to you for a fee.
Yeah, even to find myself.
Yeah, you
I
wanna
have
find
to
yourself.
do yoga.
Here's your
Enrique,
goal.
you do yoga every
Yeah.
day, right?
Here's your
but I do
goal.
it alone because of that.
Yeah, here's your
I
goal.
don't pay no one for classes.
That's
No,
great.
but I want to bring it back to
To identity.
So we can talk about identity. So
Sorry that you
no, it's fine. In the end, identity throughout history has been ambitious, and the nation state sometimes is very abstract, because you tell everybody they are Mexicans, but in the end, local people here, they don't seem to be sharing the same Mexicanity that they share with you in theory, because you're a rich white guy that has access, USD access to the beach, and they don't. So what you have in response to that is a shutting down. They build their own ethnic barrier, and they talk their own language, and they reinforce what they were told in the past that gave them an identity. And this is a paradox, because we're not going forward, we're going backwards, and we are strengthening the carcass that we had left behind as Mexicans, and we are opening niches of ethnic warfare
Yeah.
And now this is coming to
Yes.
fruition. I don't want to say fruition, to chaos. So what does the state do? Oh no, it's just bad guys that are stealing things and doing crime. No, man. We have to learn to see how this is festering, because the small groups
Yeah.
of ethnic identities are enclaves, which are comfort zones, and because they're trying to survive for themselves, with themselves, and they don't trust you and they don't need you. That's why they don't want to vote for you. But nevertheless, you kick and scream at their doors and you tell them, no, we need to save you because you're Mexican, not Mayan. So if you sacrifice again your Mayanhood, we will finally give you a sense of identity. What? We didn't want a sense of identity. We just wanted food on our plates. Oh, no. Not even that. We just wanted our own hands around on our lives, not your messy, filthy hands on how we should live our lives, mate.
Very well put. I think that it's very important to understand what is happening, and it is, again, to a lack of expression, a lack of input, a lack of food, a lack of seeing the world around you grow while you don't grow, a lack of hopelessness where the politicians tell you everything is fine, but yet you don't have any food on the table, you know, and it's a really dichotomous situation.
You know how much a kilo of avocado costs across the street? 70 pesos. That's 3.5 US at today's rate. So, avocado is becoming a commodity for the rich.
Which is it's craziness. But another thing is that everything is imported here. I had a discussion yesterday with a farmer, a guy who's building a farm, and the myth that nothing can be grown here. It's insane. It's totally insane that the myth, because they socioeconomically only wanted this place to be a tourist, and that's what they put their money in, that they never realized that you can actually grow a bunch of shit. You know, that
Look at the weather here, man.
Yeah,
Humidity.
It's
Yeah, everything will grow here.
well, the limestone is the problem, right? There is an issue with the limestone, but you enrich the soil in different ways, and but anyway, this is all. I think it all centers around identity. Actually, I think if you that vibration that makes us know that we are all once under one ancient durable order humanity. Once that vibration actually comes forward, I think that we will start to understand and live more harmoniously. But that is a tough fucking sell. You know. Anyway, closing thoughts.
I think it will happen, but
You know,
let's
you're not
hope.
so hopeless.
Let's hope it happens when we're alive.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's really hope the whole system doesn't eat us up before we can really grow and change. Because yeah, sometimes like you try to center yourself, but there's so much information from outside that you get distracted. So you are in a fight between your centering and your conditioning that and the mind wants. So like I'm saying that for myself, like I have ambitions, you know, and the ambitions take me away from my own center. So you are always in a fight between your own want, I want, and your own true self. So I hope we will, as humanity, really be able to at least be aware of that process that happens between I want more and I have already everything. I want more. I have So,
It's a very interesting point.
So-
You made me think of a couple of things that I'd like to talk about. Oh, Juan Carlos? Oh, you
I think all this talk, which is now trendy, fashionable, not only capitalism is taking advantage, it's also a possibility that thanks to many facts, I mean technology being one, meditation another, centering, personal development, awakening, is really not available for the hungry and the unemployed.
no, first.
Because
it's
just like
not.
I said before,
That's a really important
Thank you.
fucking fact. You know, because the human condition cannot allow for anybody to fucking 70% of this planet, 8% is the poorest, have no running water.
so there's an
Sorry.
analogy. There's an analogy. Thank you, between having a rational mind to be able to go beyond it, and at the previous level to have a full stomach and able to go beyond it. Say, well, I had
The Maslow's hierarchy of
I have
needs.
a, yes. I had a good lunch. Then I could think.
Yeah.
I could be myself. But first, you have to find lunch. So not only
Or shelter.
not only centering and personal development and awakening and the Buddha
Exactly.
is not available for the hungry and unemployed, but abstractions like national identity do not stick when there's no bread and butter. When the basics are not met, the pyramid is built from the top to the bottom. The biggest piece of the pyramid is the heaviest. That's your body in good shape, in acceptance, in a good meal, in a good house, in a good governmental, social situation. If you're an ethnic enclave and a refugee, you cannot think about personal development. You cannot think about nationalism. What the fuck is that? You sacrifice your flag and you go to the US as a wetback because they give you a lunch for $2.99.
Yeah. Scarcity.
Just the first drug is free, but then you have to work for the $2.99 sandwich.
Exactly.
So I would just finish by saying that I don't want to sound very cocky or anything, but I had a good lunch today. Thank you for the sandwich.
Thank you.
And because I have peace, in some sense, within me, I can think about all this extravaganza.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, let's be sincere, and be very emphatic. Many people don't have the possibility of food on their tables.
Yeah.
So once we have, we're not going to be able to feed them all. But if we are able to provide a possibility for them to have a full stomach and a rational mind, then we can join them in their own possibilities of going beyond their abstract or non-abstract sense of identity, which are playing out in their own lives.
Beautifully put. I want to add to that. You know, Enrique, you brought up an interesting point. The duality that's happening in your own mind, personal mind. I often have that same struggle because all of my heroes, or the heroes that I have, Henry Miller, Kubrick, Fellini, Hemingway, Jimmy Carter, throw him in there. You know, they had a sense of themselves that they didn't even have a sense for themselves. They knew they wanted something, and by hook or by crook, like Henry Miller lived as a bum for 10 years. As a fucking bum to write his book. And we have to be very careful in this world if we want to achieve a dream. Because the dream doesn't come by taking a side road to money.
Yeah.
The dream will never come because you have to go through the fucking 10 years. The Beatles played in Hamburg for 8 years before they could record an album. And if we want to be artists, if we want to have any self-worth, and luckily we're the fortunate ones that can have a sense of a dream, you know, they fought for the dream only. They didn't fight for, oh, let me do this on the side. And that is a big issue with our society.
Focus.
Just, okay, I want to be a filmmaker. And here I am fucking running Radio TULUM although Radio TULUM was a byproduct of exercising every day, my creative, filming every day, doing something that will strictly be about filming, about growing as a filmmaker. But running this hotel, Bohem, doesn't constitute me living my fucking dream every day.
Yeah.
And that's a very important, there was some quote that I had, don't delude yourself into thinking that if I make money or if I do this today, I will give it up later on to live my dream because I'll have enough.
No.
It never happens that way. Because we get stuck in the world that we're created for ourselves, and it's even harder to get out.
The thing is, you don't get rid of the ego. You just transform it. And you make it a slave to your dreams and desires. So instead of reinforcing who you are and why you did this, you concentrate on you who is doing it. And you melt yourself with your work. And you're not showing off, you're just yourself.
Yeah.
And you're still you, but your will is not affected by identity. So the ego is transmuted into free enterprise in the personal.
In the personal
In the
sense.
personal and the transcendence.
It's
You're still doing
transcendence,
things,
yeah.
using your body and all your different stages of awareness and of awakening. But in the end, you're acting from you. It springs from you. But your wishes and desires at the level you're setting them forth are not tainted that much with you, your last name, your passport, and where you were born.
Listen, I'm like Cher and Madonna.
So in
Must
the
be
end,
fun.
we are still responsible of our acts and our choices.
And Prince. Oops.
In the end, we have to do something,
Yeah.
but not try to be maintaining
Status quo.
a status quo and a foreign or external sense of who we are and what we need to do in our lives. This is
I
me,
mean,
I'm
and artists,
done.
I think artists, it's really, I think, there's got to be some nobility left.
Yeah.
I just go back to leadership, whether it's a profession, inspiration. Okay, let's put it another fucking way because people hate the word leadership. Inspired people. We are looking for fucking inspired people.
Authenticity.
Authenticity, sincerity,
Yeah.
and inspiration.
Exactly.
And inspiration comes from
Thanks.
making a fucking choice. If you don't make a choice, if you let life make the choice for you, you will never get to any sort of reality of this. And that's a great way to, go to the first step. Make the fucking choice. Say, this is what I want. I'm gonna do this every single day. What's the book by Gladwell, Malcolm Gladwell? Do this thing for 10,000 hours and you'll be great. Tipping Point. Right? Is that Tipping Point?
I don't know. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
read it.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I would leave it at one word.
Go ahead.
Authenticity is the goal of the individual. When we go beyond identity, the end, the ultimate end is to be you. And when you're completely you, you can be complete to others. And if you're authentic, it means you thrive beyond your limits and your
Go ahead.
manipulations.
Last words? It's a lot, I know. Sorry to
I
get
talk
you
too much.
involved in radio to love Jesus.
Well, yeah. Hear the
Love.
Okay, let me just say something. All of this conversation reminds me of, I don't know how I look, but my vanity goes a long way. I'm reminded of a great story, a metaphor, a simile, an allegory, so to speak. I don't know which one of these it is, but I was walking through India, with 22 Israeli kids. We were walking from Manali to Leh for a 30-day trek, and one of the days, 11 of the Israeli kids wanted to eat meat. There was 22 of them, so it was split down the middle. And you know, the vegetarians were hooing and hawing, or the pseudo-vegetarians, I don't know. And I was the token Indian to speak to the shepherd. And as I was waiting for the decision on which goat was to be killed, I was staring at all the shepherd's goats. And I wasn't really understanding what I was experiencing or what my mind was reading, but I was looking and staring at each of the goat's face. And I was seeing a wrinkle, a crack, you know, a character of each of the goat, which we don't often see, and often happens in some bigot's mind where they say, oh, those people all look the same. But I was starting to notice this, and it didn't become clear at the moment on what I was noticing. And all the vegetarians will be happy. The goat that was slaughtered, the meat wasn't good, and we ended up eating rice and dal that day. And then the next couple of days, we were walking, and my head was down, and I was looking at the rocks that were scattered in my path. And I picked up, you know, a couple of them that looked the same, but at closer examination, I started to notice a crack, a little hair difference between each rock. And that's when I realized that, oh my God, originality is our birthright. That the moment we're born, and to know that anyone that's ever existed, exists today or will exist, has a different characteristic. So anyone that has ever existed, will exist, is existing now, or will exist, has a different face. And I know from your high school science class, they taught you that each snowflake is different, each butterfly is different. And what the powers that be teach you, that you need to be unique. And what I'm suggesting is that you're unique by birth, that you don't need to be unique. You don't need to seek the difference between you and others. You're already different. So if you spend the time seeking similarities in all of humans, we would be much better off as a society. So always hear the love, and as we always do, sign off in Radio TULUM. Go out and support your independent voices in your villages, in your cities, in the corners where there's no street light. These are the voices that are going to change all of the hopes that you have. They're bubbling up in those corners. They need to be nurtured and loved and honored. And always hear the love, live with your intention, and always be of consciousness. Radio TULUM.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great.
That was amazing.
Great work.
Namaste.
Yeah. Very good.
That was pretty long, isn't it?